Welcome to The Lost Signals Discusses Film and TV. Using the revolutionary Manzaro-Mosi Thurlow scale,
or MONS,
we scrupulously review these art forms with an emphasis on narrative structure. Join us for another entertaining episode.
Hello there, and welcome back to Lost Signals Discusses and Reviews Film and Television. I am your totally nice guy, white bread host, Scott Thurlow, and I'm here with my fellow fat bros, Chris Morgan.
Good evening.
Steve Ramosi.
Did you say fat bros or frat bros?
Both. Whatever one you want, man.
How dare you?
And Joe Soria.
Wasn't my fault.
Never is. And today we are going to discuss, I believe it just dropped today or yesterday, Promising Young Woman, which we have just watched and are going to review. It is a film by Emerald Fennell, which is her real name, apparently. I was unsure about that. And I don't think anyone has a logline. Well, I had one, but it's kind of obscure, but I'll toss it out. It's Teeth Part 2, The Big Bite. If anyone has ever fucking seen Teeth. But, yeah, you've seen it? Nice. All right, so
almost is off the rails as Raw. Did you ever see Raw?
No, but I've heard of it. I've never seen it. But
It's much worse.
Like
much worse. And I'm the vegetarian watching a vegetarian horror movie in French. So
very nice.
Delicatessen's
also a good one. Speaking of that. But anyway, so I will tell you about the plot of Promising Young Woman. Basically, a former med student. Her name is Cassie, played by Carey Mulligan. While she was in med school, one of her best friend growing up got essentially date raped and dropped out of school, was traumatized by it. And it's very heavily implied, if not outright stated, that she committed suicide thereafter, right? Like, did you guys?
Oh, I don't know if they say suicide, but they say she's dead.
Yeah, she died like right after the incident. And
pretty obvious.
Like the frat boys, as I alluded to, involved, like, yeah, there was a complaint against them, but it basically got, as is so sadly often the case, even in real life, brushed under the table. They were fine. They went on to become successful doctors. And so Cassie has taken it upon herself to basically like get revenge for her friend by her. What she does is basically act like the drunk girl in the bar, and like creepy, shady guys take her home, and she basically fucks with them. Either she doesn't really kill them. She's not like a serial killer per se, but she's like, hey, I'm not drunk, and also what you're doing is fucked up, and fuck you if you do it again. Like, you know, so she goes around doing that and eventually comes into contact with another old friend of hers from former med student, fellow student of hers from school, played by Bo Burnham, and realizes that he basically still is in contact with a circle of friends that victimized her friend, and enacts like essentially a revenge plot specifically against them, anybody who was involved and covered it up, etc. And pretty much does that. Although, spoiler, I guess I'll put a warning here. Her revenge plot sort of goes awry in a sense, or she has a backup plan, but she ends up getting killed by the actual guy who raped her friend while she's trying to like get revenge on him at his bachelor party. But she has like sort of a ticking time bomb, if you will, from beyond the grave to get them actually arrested and expose their crime. So that's pretty much it of the plot. I actually quite like this movie. Now, I know it's a little iffy. Like, we tried to get a woman on this. Like, I know, like, just to address that elephant in the room, it probably should have a woman to speak about this kind of stuff on a podcast, but we don't. So again, we're the four white bread motherfuckers here talking about it. So we're going to talk about it from that angle. But all I can tell you guys is that I quite liked it. I am leaning towards a 3, though I can see a 2. It's not a perfect movie, but I guess what I want to say for my notes is that I think the pacing was really well done. Like, it kind of moves along at a clip pace. It's not rushed, but it takes us enough time to give you enough details and parse out what's happening. Sort of a B plot when Cassie meets Bo Burnham. Like, they sort of do have a romance, and then she realizes that, again, spoiler, he was involved. Like, he was at the present at the time when her friend was victimized.
He was a witness. I don't want to say
he wasn't part of it.
Yeah, I was going to say he was definitely guilty by association.
Yeah. He was. No, he didn't like directly do anything to her friend. He was still there and like, you know, at the part and present, and no repercussions happened to him, and he's a successful doctor as well. So anyways, I'm leaning towards a 3, but I can be talked down to a 2. I don't think I'll go to a 1. I think it was a damn solid, well scripted and well plotted film. So with that, what do you guys think?
The only issue I have with it, honestly, because I'm happy to speak at length, probably more when we get to themes. But well, the only issue I have with it was when it is revealed that Ryan's there. His is the name that is continuously repeated. It is the only real plot convenience that I can see in the film. I thought the film was incredibly well done. When it started, I actually told Beth, I'm like, and this is going to sound weird, but this seems like kind of like John Waters-esque in a way. Like if John, it's like if John
got
Waters
some
was
darker
actually
humor to it, sure, yeah.
well, I mean, not just the humor, but with regard to style and the fact that everything would just seem to be just slightly hyper real.
Yeah.
Like the coffee shop, like all the places they had this hyper real stylization. Cassie's parents' house, there's plastic on the coffee table, there's plastic, the dining room table and everything. And we'll talk more about it when we get there, but the supporting cast in this was just wonderful, absolutely wonderful. Jennifer Coolidge steals the show. There was definitely one ad lib that had to been ad lib on her part, but aside from that, I think it was a really well constructed movie. I think it would have been a cheat if Cassie, if things ended for Cassie any other way than they did. But I also think that it showed her intelligence and the fact that she knew she was putting herself on the line every time. So she made sure she had a contingency with all this.
Yeah.
It was extremely well reasoned. The thing is, it did create a mild hyperrealism about it. But I think it really explored the subject matter. I'm very, very, very happy and confident to give this a 3.
All right. What do you guys think, Joe Stevo?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was kind of teetering that the ending is the one part I didn't love. I had that as more of the Lion's Den, but listening to Chris a little bit, I guess if it ended the way where just everything was successful, it wouldn't have really paid off as well. I'm not sure what the best ending was, but I guess the postscript, or whatever you want to say, the post, I don't know what you would consider the denouement, but the wedding, it's like it's very awkwardly perfectly timed. Like she knew when the bachelor party is, so she knows when the wedding is. Like if you do the actual like carry out of that,
I think it's implied that she got the time of the wedding info out of Ryan, out of Bo Burnham.
Pretty impressive that she got the cops to show up, right?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, those cops come really quick after they had never come before. I don't know if it's a teaser.
That was the second plot convenience. Okay.
Yeah, that was what I was gonna say. So, but otherwise, leaving that aside, I thought the intro section and the inversion of you thought there's just going to see something awful start this movie and it turns to be the exact opposite basically just sets the tone like so well for the entirety of the film. It's such a great use of all the tropes that you see in like shitty either a Law and Order episode or like a drama in like in a campus on campus. So it did that really well. Then I think the body of the main part of the movie had a few lulls here and there, but was really the strongest part. You mentioned the relationship with Ryan. You had the bar and honey trap scenes, the awkward family meals, the very, very nasty meet cutes, I guess, the spitting in the coffee and the like, let's have a safe word on our date, and stuff like that. So I thought that it worked pretty well. I'm still not convinced though, and I would say this is a 2 for me. Everything worked pretty well, but I'm not on a full payoff. And I think some of the outlier scenes that were just like one-offs, like the Allison Brie scene and the Alfred Molina scene, really didn't work for me. I thought they were like
that Alfred Molina scene, but
I was going to say that's one of the things I loved about it because everything, especially when she talked to Nina's mom, everything portended to something else. I mean, it was I like the fact that like the only constants in the movie were Laverne Cox, her parents, and Ryan. Essentially, I love that. aspect of it.
Because I was gonna say the perfect. It just seemed like maybe it was the timing of it. It just seemed to like stack up where it was like, let's list all the people that she needs to see in a row, and like you're getting your ducks in order. I know that's like another film trope, but maybe I don't know. I didn't like the Melina scene, and then the Alison Brie scene. I liked it in part, but it also, I guess it was the dialogue, and it seemed overly expositional where like you're meeting them at the perfect time, like, oh, I happen to want to get drunk, and she's setting it like she's the perfect puppet master. And maybe that's because of all the strikes in the line in the book and the in the beginning, but I don't know that part. Those scenes specifically, I think lost me, so I'll go 2. But why don't you go ahead, Steve?
I could definitely see that. The thing that I think I'm going to give this a really strong 2 as well. The thing that got me a little bit was like the cynicism of this movie like makes the plot kind of obvious. Like obviously Bo Burnham's going to turn out to be a dickhead.
True.
Right?
Like, I call that like,
obviously she's not going to like have the full win in the end, right? Like she can't just get revenge. Something bad has happened to her, and then because of how cynical this movie is with rightfully so, that's the point of it, and I get exactly why, but it also makes some of the plot points like kind of obvious to me.
Good point.
As they happen. Like I wasn't as surprised about the ending as maybe I would have been if I wasn't sure that this movie is just about to skewer like men in society and shit, like sure. So I think that while isn't I'm not saying it's the wrong move to make those moves. I just think that it made the movie
a little less stable of a plot, you're saying? Like,
it wasn't as like surprising, I guess is the first word that comes to mind. But also Joe, I think you make good points. There are a couple lulls in the middle that kind of, it's nothing bad, but it's not like a perfect plot to me. It's not a perfect like script that runs through and clips along as well as it could at every given moment. So for those couple of reasons, I'm probably gonna knock it down 1 point. It's very strong 2, but a 2 nonetheless.
It seems a lot of collections of scenes, right? I think that was what I saw, or I just and it's actually was funny because it's very fair that you basically have mostly underdefined male characters and very strongly defined female characters written by a woman, directed by a woman. It's actually a fair trade-off, but it's honestly the opposite side of it, where most of the male characters that aren't Ryan are just like quick, repetitive versions of I'm a scumbag, which that is the point, but I don't know, they just fit into the plot a little too perfectly sometimes to me.
Nah, I think you guys actually convinced me. Like, again, I guess I find myself doing this more often where like I'd say it's a 2.75, so not quite a 3. So I think I'm gonna dial back to a 2, but yeah, strong 2 still. But I think you guys talked me down a bit, just again, like a few small things like you said here and there, and I think I'll settle it there. Chris, you're sticking with a 3?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'm going to elaborate more on why it's a 3, because I feel that and the protagonist are...
You don't have to defend yourself, but
I'm not.
You're certainly welcome to.
I'm reminding myself to shut up until I get to protagonist.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Well, how about Joe? You can talk about the themes.
Yeah, I think we covered them already somewhat, but you have the obvious, the blame and shame issue. That there are a lot of two sides of each coin, I think, that were gone in this movie. And it's like getting the there's blame placed, it's not accepted, and then the shame was end up on the person who is actually wronged, the victim. The being dismissed, the underreported, the rape issues, sexual predatory, and then trying to talk it off. You have every single man in this movie is trying to talk something off at some point. There's no one that's there's no innocence at all on the male gender.
Well, I wouldn't say innocent, but the only one that doesn't try to do that is Alfred Molina, obviously, and he's like forgiven, right, in that scene.
Well, he talks off that he's like, I got paid off. So he says he doesn't give himself right. He doesn't give himself. He's already beyond the pale when it comes to the acceptance. He's fully accepted, but now his life's ruined. So he's got his own version of that, and that's why I found like that was interesting that he had already been settled there, but it was also like perfect timing. The other one, Yeah, and a bit of a convenience. So I think that those are the big ones for me. Revenge. Yeah, revenge. Obviously, the revenge and avenging like the both sides of doing that. And safety was a big one for me. That they just kept going back to that. Like you're safe every time. It was a, you know, as a male, well, I don't have that experience. And when I do speak to women about when they say things like this, I don't have that perspective of being afraid and then being lied to basically by every single person that just wants to, get at me. And the last one is letting go, which is the whole point of the movie in essence, but also when does that actually happen? And it happens in different stages and efforts for everybody. So I think that's honestly the ultimate point of the movie isn't the revenge, but is the ability to finally overcome the thing that might be stopping you from continuing. But when do you stop doing that, and when do you let go for other people and everything else? So I think that's themes is good, one of the strong suits of this movie, and I give it a 1.
Yeah. What do you guys think? Good, Sivo.
It's a good point. I think that another one of the, I guess, sub themes is the failure of the the education system, specifically colleges, to protect their students. And it's something that you see real world all the time, and like this movie definitely wanted to discuss that. It's with the with the dean being basically not in on it, but like just looking the other way
as well,
in a way that college top brass at colleges tend to look the other way in
For a variety of
situations like
things.
this.
Yeah.
Was that?
I said for a variety of things.
Yeah.
This included.
Well,
The
yeah,
focus on
exactly.
successes, they don't want the demerits on the record of
Right.
the school that's not going to pay.
They don't want the bad PR and the blemish on their, like exactly. So
Exactly. And so I think that was an important little section of this as well that I just wanted to bring up. I think that you brought up very good points about the rest of the stuff there, Joe, and I agree.
yeah, I mean, too much to add. I think even if the themes are a bit obvious, I think that's sort of to me was intentionally the point. And maybe this is a bit of style, but if they're sort of tongue in cheek, but still darkly and done and addressing very serious issues, as we said, I think it all works. With sort of the hyperrealism again, like you said, Chris, like the somewhat exaggerated nature of like the world itself, and maybe just the way again it was shot. And like I'll speak more about that in style, but I certainly think, given the nature and the portrayal of the story and the characters, so I'm going to give it a 1 as well. What do you think, Chris?
I'm trying not to go too much in protagonist, but I want to build off something Joe said about letting go. Part of the reason I give it a 3, and I'm going to try to keep as much into protagonist as I can, is because to me this is more, there is a lot of messages, there's a lot of themes going on here, and it's very much a character study, which again remind me of like the Waters-esque kind of things in the way a very toned down much played straight John Waters thing, but it's the same kind of vibe, it's the same kind of feel, and it's the letting go aspect. It's because at the beginning when she's really fucking with these guys, you kind of sense that she's playing with fire, but you always figure out that she's going to kind of have some control over it. That was kind of foreshadowing something. But when she went and saw Nina's mom, she's like, move on, and she finally tries to move on. And for the first time, you get to really see her parents as human beings. You really get to see all that's in her life. The relationship that she and her boss, Laverne Cox's character's name, has, the remorse she shows for, treating people the way she did in order to enact her revenge, her obsession. It is a tragedy in a lot of different ways. It's this, like the ending. Fuck. We spoil shit all the time. So I don't think it could have ended. But so when she does die, it's like because she wouldn't let go. And all of a sudden you got to see all the people that she left behind, not just because she left trinkets, but it's just, I think thematically it cannot, the themes that, what she did, the fact that your own obsession, your own need, because really when she had that video, all she had to do was release it to the cops, give it to Alfred Molina, not do anything else. She really went right into the mall, without any consideration for anything else or anyone else that was in her life.
But she could see that get brushed away, where she could say, just like in college that was brushed away. Why would the guy pay now? They could just say they were already acquitted of it, and they could say the same thing that happened before is going to happen again. She had to kind of make it happen again in real life. She had to get another thing on him.
Yeah, I was gonna say, when they arrest him at the end of the movie, they don't mention anything about the
Not for that. They say for the
video.
death
This is
been
murder.
released. They arrest him for murdering her.
Right, but that's because that the shoe of the videotape hasn't, or the tape of it hasn't fallen yet. It's just the murder. She was a missing person, and Alfred Molina gave him the address of where they were supposed to be. Found her. The tape hadn't been released yet, and there can be. I mean,
Molina had the tape.
What?
Right?
Yeah, he had the phone. Alfred Molina got the phone in the packet.
Alfred, I keep calling it a tape because they said it was tapes, but
it's on an old phone.
But the whole point is, she was just starting to recover. She was starting to experience life again when the rug was pulled out from under her. So yeah, it's understandable why she flew into went to the lion's den and was smart enough to have all these other things. But with regard to not letting go, because she didn't have enough objectivity, she didn't have enough value in and of herself.
And when you were speaking of the college part, I think actually is really important to point out that, and this is, I think, a very deliberate choice. She picks medical school because it's a double-pronged approach of saying these people aren't just in college. They finish college. They're paying a lot of money to become professionals that are saving people's lives. And in that point, it's not like it's frat brothers and they're 18 years old and people are mistaken getting drunk.
True. Yeah, that's
there is a legacy and an experience, and these people are supposed to be the future and the future of our country, or the future of this, and
the
more experience. And
you're having these are the people whose lives are going to be in their hands. I mean, we were just kids. Yeah, you were in your fucking 20s.
Right.
So, but my whole point about with themes is there are layers of themes beyond it. But with regard to it being like just a character study, it's a tragedy because she was not able to let go. Right when she was starting to learn perspective, she had the rug pulled out from under her. This is getting a very, very strong one for the obvious themes and for all those character beats. And again, Joe, I'm glad you brought that up. So
I think there's also one more that I did neglect to skip, and I think but it's the evil nature of social media and the friender or whatever it was. That it actually feeds into the cycle, and also it's like staring at other people's happy lives while it makes you, potentially, this is a very, very important thing, I think, in our current society, that it's smaller in this film, but it's still present because she's always checking the computer. And it ties in very strongly to not being able to let go because those people have moved on and aren't recognizing her pain.
Yeah, that's all very well said. I think we all agree that the fact that it contains all those things and handles them quite well, we're giving it 1-2 themes. All right, so Steve-O, tell us about how much of a scumbag all of us are because you're on to antagonist.
I mean, yeah, like, so on the surface, for sure, like, just dudes are kind of the antagonists, and I think it's like really the patriarchal setup of society that they're really trying to, get after in this movie.
Take down, yeah.
And it takes the personage of, what was his name, Al, the guy who in this movie, but he's like the embodiment of everything that she hates and is,
of course,
antagonized by. And then you take a step back and it's like every man in this movie is just kind of a fucking asshole, or has been, at least in the past. Even if you think that Alfred Molina is like the one who gets redemption to some degree, he clearly
part of the problem,
deserving of the visit that he gets from her.
Well, go on.
And then you take another step back and it's kind of like, yeah, well, what we really want to talk about is how shitty, like, how this is so pervasive and runs through like all of society that like every man that you encounter is like to some degree like infected by this and just is like shittier because of it, right? Like to some degree. And I think that's really what the movie's trying to say. And it's obviously very effective. Like I feel her being antagonized, I think, this entire movie. And I don't know. Well, I guess I'll just leave it kind of at that. But I feel this antagonism here. I think this is a super, like, it kind of hurts to watch this movie because I'm like, shit, it's so like there's so much here that's right, and like, I feel kind of shitty because I am part of the villain of it, watching it. But I think that's kind of what you're supposed to feel. Like, look yourself in the eyes and know kind of that there's
Not to
some
be so
crappy
much of a
part of you,
scumbag
and
to
try
women
not to be that crappy
in general.
person.
I'll give you a little bit of relief and say that I don't think it's just men in general. I want to say it's the system and it's bystanders,
I was
right?
gonna
And
say
if
that
you
too.
haven't been witness to this and hasn't helped somebody or done something, and you've actually helped the people that keep quiet on it and the people enact it, both are feeding into the same system. So
Totally guilty.
it's not just you don't have to feel guilty. I mean, I don't know your every part of your life, so maybe you have something there. I won't speak on that, but there are women in here that are bystanders just as much, and they get just as much shit about it. So it's not just men. Obviously, the Connie Britton scene and the Alison Brie scene are both exemplified easy versions of, like, he got her drunk so she could admit everything, and then she steps in it and she's like, oh, I don't want to talk about that. And who needs brains? They never did a girl any good. And then so that, and then they all get paid back for it. So it's bystanders are the antagonist, and the system that's perpetuating this evil treatment of victims.
Oh, that's absolutely, true.
Certainly.
That's kind of what I meant, was like by the whole like overarching patriarchal system that feeds into this and kind of touches everybody. Anyway,
Yeah, exactly. It's an indictment on all of that, and I agree. And sorry, Chris, you've been waiting to speak, so go ahead.
I was going to say I agree with you. I mean, because that's the point, Joe. I was going to talk about the systems because Clancy Brown, her dad, who plays Cassie's dad, her mom seems to, like, they're worried about her because she's an introvert. She hasn't really moved on, but her dad and her boss, Laverne Cox, and Nina's mom, played by Molly Shannon, they all are more concerned about her. Like, her mom's like, well, you don't have friends, you don't have a boyfriend, blah, blah, blah. And it's just it's not like her mom is a bad person or doesn't understand. It just shows you the striations of, like, well, what's important to people. There's a line from Moonstruck about, like, what's she gonna do if she doesn't, with the rest of her life, she doesn't get married. Her mom kind of reminded me of that
mindset.
So it is definitely the systems thing. I'm glad I was raised the way I was raised, because I feel angry. I don't feel guilty. I don't feel this is an anti male movie so much as I feel as it's a the bystanders, the being such a good person until it's time to speak up or to follow through or to be able to walk away from something, to be able to call bullshit on something, where everybody in this film, for lack of a better term, is not able to either move on or to break away at certain times in their lives when it's going to be crucial to help themselves or to help others. So Steve-O, you're right. And but also Joe, with regards to systems, there's a lot to dissect with regard to that. There's so many different levels, and you need one of those things with the strings, the boards.
No, I mean, I don't think you need a conspiracy board, but I do agree that, like, it touches upon all the various degrees and elements of that, and I think as the antagonistic force, and I think it works.
But you have to also it's about confronting the misdeeds as well, and I think we shouldn't skip over the antagonist without mentioning Al again, that he is the still the ultimate antagonist of the entire film.
Oh yeah.
He's the actual
It's like the solidified like version of certainly of it.
but
Like
well, of the theme, but in the story, her goal is that 5, that numbered process. The end goal is fucking him, and maybe all the people around him, but all those other people were at that party. I don't know if all of them are going to get arrested from the tape, but he's the one that also killed her.
But their lives are going to be affected by it.
Sure. No, and so she's getting her revenge, but definitely, Al, who I think is, we could go get into that and this is supporting characters, but I want to make sure that we don't skip over antagonists without mentioning the rapist.
The rapist and the murderer.
fair enough.
And
Yeah,
the
I mean,
murderer.
that's a good point. Like I said, I think it covers all of that. Like he's sort of both antagonistic and the face of themes, and and the indictment is justifiably, righteously there. So I think that means we're all giving antagonist a 1. Correct?
Yep.
Yes. All right. So let's move on. Chris, you've been waiting to speak about protagonists, so go ahead.
Yeah, as I said before, I consider this very much a character study. It's one of those films that's like difficult to talk about because Steve-O, you guys make up some good points. I mean, I think Al as a rapist and murderer, and basically her white whale, because we this is the second time tonight we've brought up Moby Dick, but wow, I just zoned out. All right, but it's more of a character study, and there's all these little things that go in and out of it. And one of the reason that I found it so interesting and I liked all the little fleeting elements of it, and there's certain people, was that this is her, and you're seeing the world as much as she's allowing people in or out. Because if you see, it's just like the interactions with her parents where she forgets about her birthday, they give her a piece of luggage, and it's this pink suitcase. So they see her opening it, and then the voiceover moves to work, and she's telling her boss about it. And it's just I found the film to be really, really interesting because I got a really good sense of who this person was by who was trying to reach her, who did reach her, who she realized, like Bo Burnham made a concerted effort. And of course, you get to the certain point and you're like, he went to school with these assholes. He was probably there, wasn't that? But I don't think waiting for that shoe to drop was supposed to be a twist so much as who, like I said before, she was just learning to trust again. She was just learning to move on. She was just learning to live again. And had Ryan not been on that tape, she may have gone back to Alfred Molina's character. She may have brought Laverne Cox in and brought Alfred Molina and her parents in. She probably would have had more people, bringing more people in. So it's a tragedy in that she became so obsessed with this. And I'm not blaming her anger or her obsession, but it's a tragedy in the fact that she had all these people around her before Bo Burnham came in. And it's just like nobody came into focus. And right when they started coming into focus, she kind of, in a sense, relapsed. The film is a fucking tragedy in so many levels. But I thought this was a very, very, very good character study of a damaged person. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I'm just,
He was traumatized, we'll say.
Traumatized. And it's a tragedy. I think the way her story was told, I think this story was told through, that it was told through her eyes in the way that it was. She was an incredibly effective protagonist. Like I said, this is why I'm giving it a 3. This is because I feel that all these everything that went into the even with the plot conveniences that went into how the film was shot, the narrative played out, was because it was to demonstrate who this character was and who the people were around him. And you got to see everybody else through her eyes, as they came into focus for her, they would come into focus for you. That's all. So I'm giving her a 1.
Yeah, no, I agree. So here's a pun for you. Carrie Mulligan carries this film. Yeah, she does a great job, and yeah, like the script gives her a lot to work with. It's a very well constructed and well written script, as we mentioned. So I'll just mention again here, and that combines with the performance to create, like you said, Chris, a very interesting and sort of unfortunately tragic character study. But you also understand exactly who she is and why she's doing what she's doing. So I'm going to give it a very strong 1. I don't have much more to add. I just think it's a really solid as hell done portrayal and exploration of that. So good, boys.
Yeah, I mean if Carrie Mulligan is the reason to see the movie. It's the meatiest role she's had probably ever in her career, definitely in years. I know I mentioned to you guys before this that she was really good in the television series called Collateral, where she kind of plays a dickish, drunkish type cop scenario. But most of the time she has a very understated, quiet, not Barbie. Like this is not her type of role. It's usually she's British. She's got very, different speaking. So the only even taste that I would get of this is in Inside Llewyn Davis. If you've seen that, there is this scene where she's like basically a dick a lot to Oscar Isaac's character, and she's the love that got ruined by the musician who was like the tramp type musician, and she's really good in that. She's very angry, and you can see that like resentment that stays there. But overall, her performance is the key to the movie. She performs the dialogue very well, and I think. It's just the whole point of the movie. I mean, even that to me that final scene that we've mentioned a couple of times, I think it's really, it's like you get that both sides where she comes out and does her Harley Quinn, in a nurse outfit over the instrumental version of Toxic, and that builds off, and then it ends with her being suffocated. But there's so many twists and turns in that she makes them all work. I think her counterpoint, the guy from Glow, I don't know his name,
Chris.
Bash.
Christopher
Bash from
Lowell,
Glow, yeah.
Bash from Glow. He's okay, and he still like seems too nice even when he's killing her, and just trying to say like this is not my fault, but she's the one that sells that scene from the beginning to the end, with the handcuffs, with the delivery, with all the dialogue, and he just plays the kind of the stooge douchebag role. And if it wasn't for her, this could have looked like not the same. She's the glue. So strong one for Carrie, and
yeah, that guy's name is Chris Lowell. I agree that she is the reason to. I wouldn't say the only reason to watch this movie, but she is the strongest part of this movie. Her performance is absolutely amazing. She has a lot of different shades of emotion going on that like are like under the surface and somehow come across like really well in this, which is probably down a lot to the style and the direction as well, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. I will say that this question I was struggling with a little bit. It may surprise you to hear, because
that is odd.
Ben, for this reason, like I love this character. I love what he did with it. I love all that stuff, but her character starts and ends this movie in pretty much the same place. The character begins to happen, and then she reverts back to what she was at the very beginning of the movie, and doesn't really change, or it doesn't really end up as a different person at the end. Which was giving me a little bit of, I'm probably still going to give it a 1, but like, it was just something I was thinking about. I was like, she is kind of always throughout this film defined by her trauma, and doesn't, like, we don't get to see really, even when, I guess you get to see like her start to come out of her shell a little bit when she's like dating Bo Burnham's character, but she doesn't have, we don't see more than that really from her. Everything that she does in this movie is defined by that trauma, and I know that's the point, but also, people who have been traumatized have other parts of their lives and other things that they, other things that define them other than that. So not to say that. I mean, I get that's the point of this movie, I guess. And I think I'm gonna still give the character one. I think Carrie Mulligan's performance is absolutely hands down fucking amazing in this. I think she does a great job, and yeah, so that's kind of where I came out.
This isn't a movie about change, so it's a movie honestly about being that you can't always change. Most of these characters, there's the one or two that change their minds, but I don't think it's guaranteed. And I know the hero's journey usually has to be a change, but that's not necessarily all heroes' journeys.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like it's almost it's not quite a U-turn arc, Steve, right? But like she starts to do it, and then something happens. The cynicism, drips through again, and she's back to sort of where she was before. But I still think that makes sense, and of course is intentional, like you said, is the very point, the core at least of the story here and the character. So,
but she's also not a hero, not trying to be a hero, and is basically a martyr. I mean, she ends up, because it is about the fact that the movie isn't about the fact that she can't change. And here's the thing that resonates with me, not just the dinner with her parents, but they do a thing where they're having pizza, and it's her at work with Bo Burnham and Carrie and Laverne, and they're all laughing eating pizza, and I'm like, here's a slice of normality this woman has not had in 8 years. So I'm saying is the thing that my only point is that stuff like that resonates so much because of the fact that here's a person who doesn't change, is not going to change, but we're rooting for it because she's getting glimpses of her life. So,
and you're skipping the T word. I mean, it's a trigger. She was there. She was actually right there. Like you saw, she was ready to finally lean into happiness. And then the video comes. She had never seen this video. Everyone else, it seems, apparently this video knew it. Yeah. And the trigger comes through, and she has to confront it. Like she can't be the one that actually ignores it, like everyone else has who has seen the video.
Yeah.
And didn't do anything about it. So, I think it's as fair as can be on that.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a very good point. And like I said, that was kind of something that came into my head, was like that she ends this movie where she starts to, despite that being the point of the movie, you make very good points there. And I already said I'm going to give it a 1, but I think I'm a little bit more on that side after hearing you guys.
She finally takes it out on the person who did the deed.
It
out on everybody else.
So that's what we're all hoping for the entire time, right?
But that's the change, because the whole time she knows who did it, and she said she knows he was in England or something, but she could have just actually vented that, tick that off the list, and she never did. She just kept it in reserve and took it out on everyone else. That was in her way.
True, good point. That's all fair. It all makes sense, and I think we're all giving it 1s regardless. So yeah. So then I shall move on to secondary, and I think this is an easy one. Like, I guess I'm not going to say I'm surprised, but like I was pleasantly grateful for for the cameos that did pop up. Like, yeah, I saw Laverne Cox's name in the credits, Chris, and I was like, oh sweet. And she's like, if this was like a normal like rom-com, she like is that like the best friend of like the star drama like woman that the whole thing centers around. But it's got sort of a darker like tongue-in-cheek edge to it to a degree. And I think like a bunch of other characters too, like Bo Burnham, but like fucking Chris Mintz-Platts like shows up randomly, like one of the guys that she like fucks with, right? Who else we got? Alfred Molina, like I recognize him, but
uncredited.
Joe, do you know this? He's uncredited in the film, like apparently, which is really somewhat odd, like a strange like fact to me. But I think he was a good character. In fact, maybe one of the most important to a degree, because he's very complicit. He was the lawyer or whatever, right? That got all the douchebags who were accused of stuff like off because of just shady like dickwad practices. And he even says, he's like, I had a epiphany. They called it a psychotic break at work, and now I'm like crushed because I realize what I've done and I've ruined so many lives, and now I feel ruined by it, right? So like, and hold on, there's a couple more. To Molly Shannon plays Nina's mother.
There's Richard from Veep. I don't know. He's in everything. He's
Yes,
also
yeah.
in I Think You
what's his
Should
name?
Leave.
Sam something. Steve. Oh God, what's his name?
Yeah, Sam Richardson.
Yeah.
Sam Richardson.
Yeah, so like I just think like it's kind of neat like how they all like sort of pop up, but like not for no reason. I think there was a good casting choice throughout, but I think they fit in there nicely, even if like you're not quite expecting like per se the specific actors. But and yeah, they all filled out the world. I guess Bo Burnham is like the standout because he has the most time and the most like um beside Cassie/Carrie, like the most arc in a sense. And then like yeah, Steve, one of you mentioned like it was obvious that you called like he's obviously part of it or was there like part of the original incident, but that's sort of like the subversion on the subversion in a sense for that character, and at least in my mind. So, anyways, I'm just saying like one of you mentioned Clancy. Clancy Brown is always awesome in almost anything too. So yeah, it's just a really well done, great casting picks for. While they may not be like the most meaty of roles, they're like meaty enough, and they all did a good job with them. So I'm giving them all a 1.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned like most of them.
I mean, there's a smaller-ish. There's like 5, 6, but still.
Yeah, and what's his face? What the hell's his name from New Girl?
Max Greenfield or something.
Max
The guy's best
Greenfield,
friend.
is in it, and you know we mentioned Alison Brie earlier.
Connie Nielsen. So
Yeah, Connie Nielsen. Yep, and Molly Shannon.
Everybody does a good job. Yeah, Molly Shannon. Everybody does a good job. Most of them are very one-dimensional characters that are there for like 3 seconds.
Sort of.
Bingo.
Well, Chris
like,
Pratt, yeah.
I honestly don't know if I'm going to give this a 1. Because like in the same way that I was thinking about the Carey Mulligan thing in a much bigger way, I was thinking about this as like, do any of these characters have like anything that makes them more than one-dimensional? And the only ones that I could really think of that maybe fit that bill are her parents and Laverne Cox's character. Maybe. But like I think that I'm not sure they do. Like they kind of are every one of these supporting characters kind of one note, and that's in order to highlight, you know, even Bo Burnham is I guess he has a little bit more going on because like
I was gonna make that argument.
yeah, you know.
Yeah, that's I think that's the winning argument. Like I had already said it earlier, right? I didn't really like the Melina scene. I didn't really like the Bree scene. I think it's kind of a collection of individual scenes that you can almost tell. This is where you could tell this is an independent or smaller budget film. Every single scene is Carey Mulligan and one person. 90% of the time where they film it, and that's the scene they get, and that's it. Molly Shannon, Alison Brie comes back to the outside of the house. So to me, it just doesn't feel together. It's not like an ensemble to me. It's just like a collection of scenes, and the only one that pays off is the Bo Burnham because he has interaction, and actually I think he has a multifaceted. So I give this a mid-level 1, but I am not actually. I love the people that are in this movie. I do not like most of them in this movie, to be honest. And I
get what you mean. Yeah.
Characters don't, they're just kind of like, okay, I recognize that person now. He's another scumbag who wears a fedora. Like, okay, what's the point? Anyone could have done that. Like, you hired him, fine, but it just doesn't really do anything for me. And the Clancy Brown, actually, that was the only one I appreciated that he got to not play, a Highlander villain or a Billions murderer, the evil representation of the Trump, presidency. So
I do want to really briefly mention, since you brought up Sam Richardson again with his fedora, how much different it is him in this and him in Veep, where he's like literally the only nice good character in that show, and now he's like one of the
it's sort of a meta joke unto itself.
Yeah, he's the African American gentleman in the bar that that repeats. He's also really good in I Think You Should Leave, in the one where he's the baby talent show. Does no one know what I'm talking about?
I didn't see it.
Oh, guys, it's only 6 episodes. They're like 12 minutes. They're the funniest things you'll ever see.
right.
They're all on Netflix. Watch. Look for that one, the Little Dinky Doo-Doos collection, I think it is. And there's a Fred Willard sketch that I watched 15 times the day he passed. That is so good. And whatever. I don't. This isn't a Tim Robinson, I think you should leave sketch. But I know Chris didn't get a chance on this, and we named.
Wait, which one? Which series are you recommending for
It's
us?
called I Think You Should Leave. It's
I've heard of it. Yeah.
sketches on Netflix. It's 6 episodes. I think it's the guy. I didn't see Detroiters, but it's Tim Robinson from the Detroiters. It's the under like the Lonely Island type cruise production, and they're just extremely scatological. Commercial takes, but really, 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 really funny. You'll have a good evening tonight if you put on a 12-minute.
Go check that shit out.
Go check
Throw a
that shit
couple of
out.
those on.
Yeah, after you
There's
watch
our
Promising
commercial in
Woman,
between.
cleanse that palate and get you some Tim Robinson. He's angry too, though. He's an angry white male. You'll see as well, or at least in the sketches. So, yeah.
So sorry, Joe. You're giving it a 1 officially, even if it's a little bit.
It's a middle one. I just don't. Yeah. Again,
Okay.
I'm underwhelmed by a lot of the individuals, and I like the actors. I didn't really love all the performances.
I get what you mean. All right, Chris. Yeah, we're weighing on this.
I'm like, again, I'm approaching this film differently, I think, than Steve and Joe are, because I'm definitely seeing this as a character study, and that the supporting characters play their role through contrivance in the fact that, given her perspective, like I said before, they come in, they serve the story, her story, to the extent that they serve in her life. They come into focus or have light to them, with
Relative
regard
to her.
Yeah, because listen, look at the Alfred Molina scene. Things start, her perspective changes right after that scene. Like afterwards, she realizes all the horrible things she did, because when Alison Brie comes back, she's like, I'm really sorry. She realizes that even though she hasn't killed people or anything, she really fucks with people. She likes to scare people, put them on the spot, because she's. So I feel like a lot of the supporting characters, and yeah, of course, you cannot overlook like the fact that, okay, budgetary concerns, trying to get X amount of people in the same room at the same time, fine. But I do feel, as I said before, I feel that the way the supporting characters would come in and out, depending on who they are, spoke to the fact to me that this story was a character study. And because of that construct, because, as I said before, we got to know them to the extent that they were important to her at any given time, I really do have to give this a 1. I don't,
Sure.
If it were a lesser film, if this were a plot-driven film where it was one of those, not where a journey film where it's just like, hey, you go to a roadside diner and, oh, hey, Alison Brie's your waiter, and you're going to get your gas, and hey, there's Clancy Brown filling you up. It's just like, that would be one thing. But this one, despite the fact that the supporting cast was incredibly talented, I do think the supporting characters, even in the more ephemeral moments, did serve a purpose. And also, I want to bring up Jennifer Coolidge, who played Cassie's mom, because there is a scene during dinner, and I'm going to say this because I don't want to forget it. When they're talking about him being a child's doctor, she's like, I'm confused. Do children have different parts? Brought me right back to Mighty Wind, where she's talking about model trains, and she's like, thank God for model trains, otherwise they wouldn't have had the idea for real ones or something like that. I'm just thinking of Jennifer Coolidge ad lib. So I love her. So incredible cast. I felt that, given it was a character study, they served their purpose, so I'm giving it a 1.
All right, right on. 1's all around then, and we'll move
Yeah.
along to dialogue with you, Joe.
Yeah. The dialogue in this I thought was really good. We haven't mentioned, and I don't know if you guys are fans, but I've watched all of Killing Eve. I'm a big fan. I know
I was waiting
We
to mention.
haven't watched third season yet.
I have.
But she was the showrunner of season 2, from what I read.
Right.
So
They change showrunners every year on that show.
yeah. So and she's and I think you can see in the style that she just kind of took that style and put it onto this story. And I think the dialogue, she got to get a little raunchier, a little more R-rated, a little more man versus woman, versus like Killing Eve is more of a woman story, in its essence. so she got to play in a little bit different. So it fits into like an R-rated high school college comedy, but it also wants to shift to like these evening hunts that are these dark, something bad's gonna happen, but then eventually they actually all become pretty funny. The ends of all those creep scenes, even though they're gonna come the delivery, the lines are just I think spectacular. I've had I wrote so many quotes in here, but it's hard to even, because it's back and forth. Again, this is a type of movie that it's not just one line, it's how they say it back to each other and the tone that really, 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 really nails it. So there's this one line I wrote here that that I'm, is it okay if we have a secret friendship and I'm secretly pining for you the whole time? Dating is horrible. Everyone is horrible. Okay, I went on a date last month with a woman who wanted to euthanize the homeless. And then she goes, you went on a date with my mom? And that was the one where I was like,
line, yeah.
bingo, like you went on a date with my mom. So, and she holds that most of the time. And I don't know if that becomes like where it makes her almost unrealistic, because it's like pixie manic dream girl for like guys, where she likes good at trading barbs and it has this dark sense of humor. But to me, that comes from the Killing Eve type world, and that's where I really like it. The other one is Bo Burnham saying, I can take it really slow. I can barely move if you'd like. And then the one other one where they're walking together, it's similar to the dating my mom. But so do you think that you look like my daughter from behind one thing because you're so short
so
and
tall?
good stuff. So one for me.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Neil, like, I'm glad. Like, I meant to mention the Killing Eve like thing, like sort of like not connection, I guess, because of Emerald, but just like you said, this sort of somewhat similar tone and feel. But I'm sure you wrote this line of dialogue down, but I think it might be the one that exemplifies the entire movie and like feel of it, where when she's confronting Al at the bachelor guy at his bachelor party, and he goes, well, being accused of this is every guy's worst nightmare. And she's like, what do you think every woman's worst nightmare is, right? Like, that is just so fucking badass. Like, and
Yeah.
it exemplifies it, and she delivers it again, like with this harshness to it that's also just like this almost playfully dark as well. So yeah, I think it all works and is elevated by the performances. So I'm giving dialogue a pretty damn strong one.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you guys nailed most of it. I don't unfortunately have any quotes written down or recorded here, but yeah, I completely agree. I think the dialogue is on a high level for almost this whole movie, and the performances elevated as well. So
yep. Chris?
You guys said it all. I gave you the Jennifer Coolidge, what I assumed was an ad lib, and there were a couple of Bo Burnham things that I wasn't sure if they were ad libs too. So
I feel like he might have slipped one or two in there, sure, because he's Bo Burnham. Like, fair
but
enough.
you could tell. I mean, like the dialogue was naturalistic, and you could tell like Carey Mulligan and is that good of an actor too, that if you have comedians like Coolidge or Burnham, that she could roll with the punches really well. So spot on. One.
Yep. I think Burnham, I don't know if you guys saw 8th Grade, but I think this movie is actually a good counterpoint to 8th Grade.
Oh my God.
That it's a suffering, that one's a front facing, but you have a suffering person that's having trouble and struggling, and this is the R-rated 8th grade experience
version of that
10 years later, when the worst possible scenario. And the other thing I would mention is the one line that I really, really love was the Richard character. I always am going to call him Richard for the rest of his life. I don't care what he's in, but Richard from Veep. And at the end of it, when they're fighting in the street, when he Bo Burnham recognizes them, it says, why do you guys have to ruin everything? So he literally calls her a guy about ruining everything. It's not it's like you, even the portion of ruining everything by not letting me take you home and drunkenly rape you, like faking your drinking. Why do you guys have to ruin everything? I thought was just like spot perfect for that moment too.
Yeah,
it's very smart, darkly clever, and I love all that shit generally, and I think it's really well done in this one. So I think we were all giving dialogue one. And let's move along to style, Steve-O.
Love the style of this movie. Color palette's amazing. As Chris mentioned, like pretty much right away in the beginning, like the hyper realism of this is really well like imbued throughout the film.
Yep.
The music is awesome. I think Joe, you mentioned the instrumental version of Toxic earlier.
All the songs
But,
are
all
fucking
throughout,
amazing.
like from the opening scene. I forget what song comes on right at the opening, but like from the opening scene to the end of the movie, it's just the music is spot on the whole way. Yeah, and I just love some of the shots that she's able to get in this. So yeah, I love it. I love the style.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm sorry I'm stealing this one because I usually defer to you guys, but the soundtrack again, the song choices and match to the scenes are like these like snarkily like cheeky choices that make sense, but are also like dark. Like I outright laughed at a couple. I'm like, wow, I can't believe they chose that song, but also it's so fucking perfect right now.
Yeah.
So I gotta give a lot of credit on that. And yeah, like it has like this like vague like neon kind of color palette to it, like sort of, right? It's like it's I guess the contrast is turned up or something, right? So it has this like that's what sort of feeds into the hyper realism, like the somewhat exaggerated feel of the world, even though it's not like fucking super surrealistic. It's like turned up just enough that it matches to the rest of the tone. So I gotta give a lot of credit there, and I definitely am giving style a 1. And you guys, that's what I gotta say. So what else you gotta? What else in style do you like?
Yeah, I mean the visual palette, the tenor is really good. I think I mentioned it earlier, but I do like, I got to give extra credit. I think it said this film was shot in 23 days, which is actually a very
Yeah,
tight.
it was.
Really?
That is really 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 tight, which means you have to be spot on.
That's
And
some DIY shit, Jesus.
to have to get that much style. I think the other thing when you look through, I like to see, what other people do in these movies, or if you look through, they're mostly less experienced people, and it looks like she gave a lot of people that had done a lot of work at lower levels a lot of chances to do a lot. So we'll do my name call out on this game, but we have Ray Delish as the set decorator. That's not usually someone I will call out, but this movie specifically, the coffee shop I thought was just like really really, all the little touches on that were great. There was one note I made specifically that when they were in the college for the interview, right before she went in, she's reading the pamphlet, and it's called Forest University, which like forest in the trees, and it says where all your beginnings begin. And I'm just like, that is
That's like a Coen Brothers thing.
fantastic, and someone else mentioned the plastic tablecloths and the pink walls, the dog paintings in the family house. The Make Us Coffee, that's the name of those colors.
No, it's Make Me a Coffee, I believe, or something like that.
Is it Make Me Coffee or Make Me? Okay, Make Me a Coffee, that makes more sense. But that's and so you have the editing. There is a Frederick Thurival, who basically has only made Luc Besson action films, so you could see where the pacing and cutting comes from. He made District B13, From Paris with Love, and Taken. So those are his editing credits plus Sinister. So you see where that edginess and the sharp cuts and that was a choice. Obviously, with the shooting, when I have basically almost a second time for cinematographer, whose only other credit really, other than some short stuff and some TV, is a movie called Beast that I love with Jesse Buckley and what's his name, Johnny Flynn. That's a really good kind of variant of this movie as well. But the framing, and there's a couple of good, classical framing when they're sitting down on the couches and you have the background, and it just puts all of it together, and the cut back and forth is just so great. So I'm definitely giving this a 1. The only thing I would do on the contrast is, while the music, I actually didn't like it to start. It kind of turned me off, but the Toxic one was a hit. That one, and I think the Paris Hilton sing-along thing in the pharmacy, that did well. I guess maybe I'm spoiled. I think Killing Eve has some of the best musical cues like in the history of everything. So that if you're giving me a comp, this doesn't touch those like Nico-esque heavy breathing female singing, but I appreciated that the choices. I'm also have a thing about hating most cover songs, but instrumental cover songs different. If you give me an orchestral version of Toxic, I'm okay.
Fair enough. Steve, I have a couple things to add, but I'll let you guys go first.
I was gonna say, one of my pet peeves, and it's been something the last, I don't know, maybe 10 years, maybe less, is where you take a song, a chipper song, and you play it like very slow piano and so forth. And
fucking hate it.
And it's just they get this ethereal
Hallelujah,
voice
hallelujah,
doing
Chris.
it. I fucking hate that. However, when they open this up with a version similar to that with It's Raining Men,
Oh,
Yeah.
all of a
That
sudden
got me.
some trope that I hated said, this is how you use this. This is you take a song like It's Raining Men, where you can really slow enough where you can analyze the lyrics and contrast it to what's going on, is just such a great. And I also love the beginning where they're kind of showing it's a dance thing, and then they pull back and it's just like a bunch of drunken guys in a
Song is,
meeting.
I got boys on my mind. If you got
Yeah,
that was the
it's-
middle of the dance song.
Yeah, so it's the style's getting a 1. It's just awesome.
All right. Well, yes, I agree, of course. So 2 more things. Just 2 funny thoughts is that while you were talking about style, Joe, I was like, kind of, I don't know if you guys agree. So maybe I'll just ask you, Edgar Wright-ish to a degree in terms of like kind of way the shots are, but and also good choice on them by not using Maneater as one of the songs because that's too obvious and that would have felt super cheap. So I just thought of that.
The one that I was thinking was actually American Psycho, a female American Psycho, the glamish, because it has that glam 80s. You were saying pink 50s, like bubblegum, but I'm going like Patrick Bateman without the blood. There's the one scene where I forgot what she's eating, where you think that she actually murdered the guy.
Yeah, right in the beginning.
Right. So you think that this is a killer thing. I am actually one of my sticking points was there are so many. You would think there would have been some escalation with the number of check marks she had in that little page day thing. That at some point there would be a kill. I don't know if the colors meant something different. I'm not exactly sure how the system worked. But I think also the Raining Men wasn't that a Trump song too, where he would play that at rallies?
I don't know.
That was kind of a like scumbag, like poke him in the pussy type, fuck you back, take back the song type thing for me. So
I don't know. But no, it looks like we're giving style pretty strong 1 across the board. And that'll bring us home to recommendation. Chris, you recommend Promising Young Woman?
Yeah, absolutely. I
figured you would.
It's one of these things where it's hard because it is about the subject matter, of the way, rape and date rape and consent and so forth. But as I think we've discussed, there's a lot that is said in this film. This film can be taken a lot of different ways. I am so glad I didn't know before this that this was the season 2 showrunner of Killing Eve, because then I really would have walked in expecting her to, between that and the John Waters aesthetic, I really would have expected something like Serial Mom or something like that. This film is a really great thing where this film does a good job of like making you wonder, what is she doing to these people? Is she just like, torturing them? Is she killer? There's so much that's this film is very dynamic. Is it perfect? No, it's not perfect. There are some, as I said before, there's some plot conceits that I overlooked solely because I considered this more of a character study than anything. It's not an easy film to watch at parts. It's an uncomfortable film. It is a film that will make you angry. I mean, we're
supposed to.
Yeah, it's supposed to. You're supposed to feel a shit ton of stuff when you're watching this. And I mean, I did. I said, when the 3 of them eating pizza that one time was this little moment of heaven in a way. This film doesn't forget to stop and smell the roses when you pass by them. I think as I said, it's not a perfect film, but it's getting a 10 from me. It is.
Yeah, I mean, I recommend it for sure. Like, it's been on our radar for a bit, and I was pretty much looking forward to watching it. And now it was a highly enjoyable ride, even if, like you said, Chris, it goes to some uncomfortably dark places, but rightly so, and things that should be addressed and things that are still fucking happening in our actual society. But again, like, it has that just dark, like, cheekiness to it that's the best phrase I can describe it, that it's sort of like in my warehouse. Like, I really love that stuff, and I think it balances those 2 things quite well. And performances are certainly, especially like we said, from Carrie, like, certainly something to see and appreciate. And yeah, I easily recommend it.
Yeah, same. I give it a strong recommendation. I don't have too much more to say. I think we've said a lot already. But check it out. Have a watch.
Yeah, I think if only we mentioned before, but if only for Carey Mulligan's performance, and if you're into the the darkness and having dark comedy, I think this is a not the top tier of dark comedies, but the periods when you're allowed to enjoy it, it's solid and it's enjoyable. I wouldn't, in a normal year, this is a 7 out of 10, right? Like right in the middle. But like in this type of year where there hadn't been that many things, this is getting its Oscar push. I think for that, and for the reason of a lot of good female involvement. I think there's a fair enough push this year to really push female directors that are female. It's an auteur driven thing because she's the writer and she's the director. So in that instance, this is all her vision. So to me, if you want to see something that's a different perspective and it actually comes from that perspective, and with I don't know, it's like that British style of great writing, where it's like a Fleabag style. I mean, there's an up and coming bunch of these writers that are worth seeking out, and I think this is a pretty good recommendation for me.
Yeah, right on. All right, so I think that's the final breakdown. So I should give you, well, Chris, you gave it a 10, and Joe and I and Steve-O gave it 9. We took 1 point off for plot. Chris gave it full marks for plot because of the reasons he said, and everything else we give a 1 to, and that comes out to a 9.25, which is pretty damn strong. And yeah, like I might say it's like an 8.5 or something, like on some outside arbitrary scale. Doesn't matter. Still a damn entertaining and well constructed, well acted film, like we all said. So definitely check it out. And like you said, Joe, it's from perhaps, again, if you're like us, i.e., the most straight right-brain motherfuckers in the world, at least it's from a different perspective, but you can still enjoy and and feel the things it wants to feel, like you said, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a whole movie. The thing I was thinking about was it was almost like a whole movie about Marla from Fight Club, but with the inversion of all the colors.
That's
where
really
like
good
you
line,
got
yeah.
that side of it, instead of seeing like this grime, you got all the bubble. If they turned the saturation the exact opposite way on.
Yeah. I like that.
But that's violence. Like I think I didn't sit down and watch this with my lady because I thought it was actually going to be violent, and it's not that. It's emotionally violent, but it is not blood violence.
It subverts a lot of stuff like that, and I think that's a credit again to the whole film itself. So yeah, I think we'll call it there. I of course will try not to be one of the douchebags in the bars. I've been Scott Thurlow, and I've been here with Chris Morgan.
Have a good night.
Joe Soria.
See you later.
And Stephen Amosi.
Have a good one.
And we'll see you next time. Cheers.
Editing and engineering by Christopher Morgan. Music by Christopher Morgan. Check us out on YouTube and iTunes for the shows, and on Facebook and Twitter for updates.
Or Mott's?